Hi everyone, Emily Mercado back with the Gospel Seminar. We're continuing with Stage 2. Today's focus will be the life after death. Okay, just as always, a few housekeeping items. First and foremost, I want to remind you guys that I am not a trained theologian. So I just want to put that right out there, first and foremost. The translation I'm using, as always, is the NIV. You can always use whichever translation is the most accessible for you. That's totally fine. But for consistency's sake, I'm using the NIV. Okay, the content of the seminar was developed by Pastor Soon Ki Kang and Pastor Joe Kim. They're the pastors at my church, the Church of Jesus in Paramus, New Jersey. To my point earlier, I'm not a trained theologian, but I'm just a humble messenger sharing the gospel and the word with you. So let's get right to it. The life after death. Because the body is made up of dust of the ground, God said that it must return to dust. And we hear that in the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verse 19. And it says, by the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. Okay, God made man a spiritual being, and as a result, that spirit comes from God. So the spirit always returns to God, even though our physical fleshly body goes back to the ground. Our spirit goes back to God always. Just like I said, our flesh returns to the dust of the ground. Our spirit returns to God. The spirit must always return to God. All right, and since Adam sinned, all spirits have sinned, and they can't return. Spirits that can't return remain in Hades rather than going to hell. We're going to get to that in a minute, but we see that in the book of Luke. Chapter 16, verses 22 and 23. The time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where he was in torment, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. And I'm going to go on to chapter 24, verse 24. So he called to him, Father Abraham, have pity on me, and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony in this fire. But Abraham replied, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. Okay? So, where is Hades? Right? Where is Hades? Hades, in Greek, is called the earth. And so if you think about what the Greek word for the earth is, well, we're in Hades right now, okay? And Sheol in Hebrew is the underworld or the underground. And, also these words have a meaning of the world, okay? And Jesus said the gates of Hades will not overcome it. That's from Matthew 16:18. And we as believers, we know that the world we live in, and also Hades are the same. It's also called the abyss, which is a spiritual space within the material heaven. Okay, and unclean spirits, unclean spirits remain in that world for 120 years, and after that time they're sent into the abyss. For example, the man who was demon-possessed and living in tombs asked Jesus not to send him to the abyss. And we find that in the book of Luke, chapter 8, verse 31. And it says, I'm going to start actually with verse 30. Jesus asked him, What is your name? Legion, he replied, because many demons had gone into him, and they begged Jesus repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. And all of this is included in the concept of Hades. It's also referred to in the Bible as Gerasenes. In Luke 8, chapter 26, they sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, which is across which is across the lake from Galilee. And also in Luke 8:37, then all the people of the region of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them because they were overcome with fear. So he got into the boat and left. So where do believers go? That's actually a really valid question. Like, I'm a believer. Well, where do I go after I die? The spirit of the beggar, Lazarus, as we spoke about previously, went to Abraham's side. Okay, and we see that in Luke 16:22. The spirit of the thief went to paradise, right? Because he believed. And we find that in Luke chapter 23, Luke chapter 23, verse 43. And that says, I'm going to start with verse 42. Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus answered him, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. Abraham's side, Abraham's side is referred to throughout the Bible. It's the place where the ancestors of our faith are. It's the concept of paradise, right? And in the Old Testament, Abraham's side is where our ancestors are. Paradise is a concept that's found in the New Testament, where the spirits of those who were saved by the blood of Christ first go after they die. And through the death of Jesus, those who had died had the kind of faith found in the Old Testament. They were saved by his blood, by Jesus' blood, and they were also absorbed together into paradise. Unclean spirits, however, have a slightly different fate. An unclean spirit is a spirit that leaves the body without establishing a relationship with Jesus Christ. They remain in Hades, the world, aka the earth. Okay, we see that in the book of Mark, chapter 1, verse 23. And that said, I'm actually going to start with a couple of verses prior to that, in verse 21. So Mark chapter 1, verse 21. They went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, Jesus went into the synagogue and began to teach. The people were amazed at his teaching, because he taught them as one who had authority, not as the teachers of the law. Just then, a man in their synagogue who was possessed by an impure, unclean spirit cried out, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Jesus of Nazareth, have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." "Be quiet," Jesus says sternly. "Come out of him." The impure spirit shook the man violently and came out of him with a shriek. It's important. These verses actually are very important to consider, because even though, like, when Jesus was preaching, we know that people, normal human beings, didn't recognize Jesus for who he was. But these unclean spirits, this is that they know who Jesus is, and they say, have you come to destroy us? I know who you are. So these unclean spirits, they remain here in the world. And when these unclean spirits come out of the body, they seek rest. And when they don't find rest, they return. And we can see that in Matthew chapter 12, verse 43. When it says, when an impure spirit comes out of a person, it goes through arid places, seeking rest, and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to the house I left. When it arrives, it finds the house unoccupied, swept clean, and put in order. Then it goes and takes with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there. And the final condition of that person is worse than the first. That is how it will be with this wicked generation. I went on and read through through verse 45. These unclean spirits have no part in Jesus. We see that in the book of Mark, chapter 21, verse 24. It's a verse that we just read not too long ago. What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. We also see that in John, the book of John, chapter 13, verse 8. I'm actually going to, it's when Jesus asked Peter to wash his feet. I'm gonna start with verse 6. He said he came to Simon Peter. Came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and head as well." Okay, I continued on to verse 9. For those of us, and what this verse, is illustrating is that for us to have a relationship with God, our spirits have to be washed with His blood. And as I said in previous sessions, Jesus is the vine, and we are the branches. And it's shown in John 15:5. This concept is shown in John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And Jesus passed his quote unquote sap, on to us, and we have the same life as he does. A little bit more about unclean spirits. The lifespan of a body is 120 years, and we find that in Genesis, in the book of Genesis. Genesis. I'm using the Bible on my phone. Genesis chapter 6, verse 3. It says here, "Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years." Okay, so that said, the duration of the spirit dwelling in the body is 120 years. So say if an unbeliever dies at the age of 100, the spirit will remain in the world as an unclean spirit for 20 years. Okay, for another example of that is if I were to die at age 50, my spirit will remain in the world for 70 years. If I died when I was 10, my spirit will remain in the world for 110 years. Then it would go to the abyss because I didn't have that relationship with God. And the two main reasons why we need to save our family members, because they are our blood ties, they're our family, and we don't want them to go to hell. And when their spirits aren't saved, when they die, they'll come back as unclean spirits, and they'll come after us. And the moment a person loses their breath, their unclean spirits leave the body and go to their family. And this is actually a characteristic of the devil. I know that was kind of like a weighty topic to think about, but I do have a couple of discussion questions for you to ponder until next time. How does this view of the life after death challenge or change your view of the world and the spiritual life? How does it change the view of your own life? And now that you know what you know, how do you feel about your unbelieving family members and friends? And as always, we close with a short prayer. Lord, give me the faith to escape this burning hell. Let me and all those whom you've given me also escape from this place. I hope you got a lot out of the session today to think about and ponder. I'll see you next time. Pray for you. I will pray for you, and I hope that you will pray for me. Have a good day.